You're listening to the Live Free podcast. I'm your host, Christine, author, speaker, mentor, and guide. I'm here today to discuss living life after adversity, to discuss living life fully once again, a life of hope, peace, and resiliency, a life fully embodied. I utilize the lessons that I learned going through not one, but two primary cancers. I'm here today to guide you to your joy, turn your pain into power, and lead you back to yourself. Hello, and welcome to another episode of the Live Free podcast. Today, you have got just me on the podcast, and I want to talk about silver linings. Now, we've all heard of these. We've had a million people tell us to look for the silver lining, and sometimes it just doesn't feel like it's there. I know this because, since going through my own journey 4 years ago, I really feel like in a lot of ways, life has been really an uphill battle since then. I find, I started a business, and no matter what happened, no matter what I did, no matter how hard I worked myself into the ground, I felt like I just couldn't get any traction. The weight that I gained from cancer, which was truly the salt in the wound, no matter what I do, does not seem to want to come off. The health that I thought that I would be able to regain has been intermittent at best. And I find that tiredness and stress can be really, really difficult. And most of all, finances, since losing that much time at work and then making a career change, have been a huge struggle with myself and in my family. And of course, there's been some really beautiful moments too, and many of them I've talked about on this podcast. But there certainly has been times in the last 4 years that I have felt like there are no silver linings to be found. And each person who told me that, hey, you can find the silver lining in this, the more and more frustrated I began to become. And so maybe you feel this. Maybe you feel like you are trying and trying and trying, and no matter what, it just seems to be harder to find those silver linings as the years go by. I totally understand this, and I just want to acknowledge how exhausted you might feel in this uphill battle. And you might feel, just a general feeling of, I'm so tired that everything has always got to be so hard. And I want to honor you in that because I myself have felt that multiple times in the last 4 years. Everything seemed to be going along smoothly, and then, boom. And since then, it has really, really felt at times like it's just like there's just no silver lining to be had. Now, of course, that's not true. And we know that. Of course, there is beauty in every single one of our painful situations, but sometimes it just doesn't feel like they're there. And so I just want to give you a couple of my things that I tend to search for when I'm in those moments when I feel like, there's just no coming back from this. It's not getting better. No matter what I do, it just won't get better. And so I tend to lean on a few things, and I want to discuss them here. So number one is the myth of rock bottom to breakthrough. So society loves a comeback story. I, in my own business, talk about a comeback story. I talk about how, we went through this really difficult situation, and then all of a sudden, boom, everything was beautiful. And the truth is that growth does not always come in these grand epiphanies. It's often the small shifts and the consistencies that we make as humans in our lives, that society goes, oh my goodness, she had this epiphany, this amazing moment, when the heavens opened up and God swooped down, and all of a sudden they didn't struggle anymore. And, that truly, truly is a myth. In the last 4 years, I have had beautiful, beautiful moments and shifts and things that I never thought I would ever be able to experience. I am deeply grateful for everything that happened to me. And I truly do feel that my life has become magical in a lot of ways. But the myth that you go rock bottom to breakthrough is just not true. I have had consistent days where I have had to get up and, despite everything against me, have had to have consistent moments of, okay, all right, this isn't easy, but I'm going to do it anyway, over and over and over. And yeah, to the general public, it may look like I had this grand epiphany, this rock bottom to break through. But what it really has come down to is these small, unglamorous moments where I've gotten myself out of bed, even when it felt like there was no reason to, or no purpose. And so I want you to look at your life at this moment as you listen to me. When you felt like this difficult thing that's happened to you in your life, whether that be cancer or whatever it is, do you consider to yourself and do you think to yourself, but like, where's my epiphany? Where's my breakthrough? Well, I guess I'm only one human, but I've met a lot of really spectacular humans that have had some rock bottoms and some beautiful breakthroughs. And what I have learned through every single one of those human beings is that it is not extremely hard to extremely easy. It is instead a slow, non-linear process of lifting yourself up day in and day out. And yeah, there's some really beautiful shifts. There's some moments in there where life seems more doable because you have a different perspective on life because of your rock bottom. And those can really help you in those moments where you have to pick yourself up out of the leaves. But over and over and over again, those people, myself included, have had to move on a non-linear path upwards and then down and then upwards and then down and then upwards and then down into this place where, according to the general public, there's a breakthrough. And so don't get confused the social media version of life in your own life and be wondering, where the heck is your breakthrough? As far as I know and as far as I've seen, I don't think there really is one. I think that there's a breakthrough and shift in your own mind. But that leads to a hell of a lot of work on the other side. But it's worth it. And it's really, really, really worth it to make those tiny shifts. Because, one day you look back 4 years later and you think to yourself, oh my gosh, the person I am today, 4 years later, after making those small, consistent steps, is nothing like the person who originally hit rock bottom. And I am very proud of where I've come. And I know you will be too. But I'm sorry to say that I don't know of anyone personally who has hit a rock bottom and then everything was just perfect after that. Their mind has changed, but their circumstances often haven't. And sometimes they're even worse. In the case of myself, it was in health and, difficulty coming back financially. So that is one step to take into account, is to give yourself a little bit of grace with your breakthrough, in that, you don't see those small, unglamorous moments that people are making, and that you yourself will have to make small, unglamorous moments. But that's okay, because we're all doing it. Okay? The second is the power of and holding two truths at once. So this goes back to this social media belief of, once I have this breakthrough, everything will be great. But harnessing the power of and holding those two truths at once, life is unfair and I'm still finding joy. I'm exhausted and I'm still here, still fighting. I don't have all the answers and I don't need to in order to take the next step. So finding the and statements in your life in order to shift your mindset can really, really help. Perhaps it is, I was cured from cancer and I'm struggling. I'm struggling and my life has changed for the better. It's finding those, holding one grief hand in one hand and joy in the other. I spoke with a fantastic podcast guest who spoke about her journey with losing her daughter. And I'll link it in the show notes. It's a fantastic episode of where she lost her daughter tragically, and she could recall in this place of grief, feeling like I can't have joy, I can't laugh, I can't enjoy myself. My daughter has died. And so she spoke about how she's got two hands. In one hand, she can hold grief, and in the other, she can hold joy. And that there does not need to be a dichotomy there, that you can have both. And so this power of and really sets us free as we move into the next stages of our life, when we cannot find the silver linings in our experience, is this experience is awful and it has changed me for the better. So where can you find the ands in your life? I'm going to give you a moment to consider a few and try to think of your experience and, the experience that has harmed you and that you're not happy about, and how it has helped you. And let's begin with one of those. And so your experience and a way in which that experience has changed your life for the better. And perhaps right now you can think of none, and that's okay too. I hope that something popped into your mind quickly, but maybe this is something that you need to take away and journal on. Spend a little bit of time. But finding those yes ands can be extremely helpful when you are unable to see the silver linings in what it is that is going on in your life. Next is seeing the gifts that are hidden in the hard parts. And this really is the same as the one I've just spoke about, but with a slight change. So let's talk about how your experience has shifted you. And that's not for the better or for the worse, but how it has shifted you. So maybe you are less tolerant of people who have wronged you in some way. Maybe it's that you have gained the strength of self-advocating for yourself. And it's about finding those ands and relating that back to yourself. So sometimes there isn't a silver lining in the moment, but there is a who that has become something because of it. And so it's about finding how those experiences have changed you in some way. And I find that these are often gifts. They are often something within yourself that came from turmoil. And I like the visual of a lotus flower. Lotus flowers, they grow in mud and low-lying water. And so something so beautiful is often sitting on a murky and drudged lake that does not look very pretty. But in the beauty of this beautiful flower, you begin to realize that so much can come out of something so dark, deep, and murky. And this is the reason I have a lotus flower tattooed on my body. And I truly believe that the lotus is the perfect metaphor for the gifts that have come out of the hard parts. So in searching for your yes ands, this can be a really powerful exercise to sit down and write, this experience happened to me. This is the ways in which I became more this, more that, more this. And you don't have to be, all the best ways. That's fine. It can just be all the ways that it's changed you. And you might find that given the right lens, that every single one of them can be transmuted into a positive thing in your life. I'll give you an example. My mother, she has gone through cancer now twice. Awful. And the first time it shook her deeply, and then she decided she was going to have a little more fun. And so there's a gift there. And the second time it shook her deeply, and the stress that she was still holding on to began to dissipate, and she began to move towards God. And so that became the new gift, is that she created a relationship with God. And so no, it isn't perfect that she's gone through cancer again. And no, it doesn't feel good that this experience has hit her twice, and now she has an even deeper fear of recurrence. And so that is, ergo, a silver lining, isn't it? And so finding the gifts in the hidden parts, the hidden gifts, in the hard parts, can be a really beautiful way to find silver linings without toxic positivity, without saying, oh, it's so great because this awful thing that happened to me, it made me more joyous in my life. It made me more present with my family, etc., etc. Now that might be true for you, and that might be a silver lining for you, but let's dig a little deeper into the experience and say, in what ways has it changed you? Not just, how have I found the toxic positivity in this situation and how have I turned that around, but instead, how has it shook you to your core? And when human beings are shook, they do tend to rise, just like the lotus flower. And now my final piece for today to help you to find those silver linings is that if you can't see a silver lining, instead create one. So ask yourself, what meaning can I assign to this pain? So using your experiences to help others might be one. Setting boundaries that you wouldn't have found before. Finding unexpected connections, etc. And so what meaning can I assign to this pain? Maybe you're not at the point of silver linings yet because you've never built one in. Because sitting in this isn't fair, which is fair. It isn't. But sitting in the feeling of this isn't fair might be holding you back from all of the possibilities of silver linings. You've got your blinders on, and therefore you are not moving forward to anything that can cause you any joy because you are blind to all the little ways that you can create silver linings. So maybe you could use your experience to help others. Maybe you could set more boundaries. Maybe you could find unexpected connections through groups or support groups or whatever it is. But how can you take your experience and assign a silver lining? The trick isn't to wait until things get easier. It's deciding that even in this mess, your story can still unfold in every single way that you decide that it should unfold. Even 4 years later, I often think to myself, well, if I can get through cancer, I can certainly say no to someone asking me to do something that I don't want to do. And I have to remind myself of that every day. But in that, I am assigning a meaning to my pain. That is me creating a silver lining. Reminding myself that if I can go through this experience, I can set more boundaries around my energy and time. So how can you assign a meaning? If you can't find a silver lining, and that's fine, then create one. And so in closing, I just want to, give you a gentle reminder that you are not alone. You are not alone in feeling like there is no silver lining. You are not alone in feeling like there is a sign on your forehead that says unlucky. You are not alone in feeling, fear to not touch a lucky coin, because what if you inherently make it unlucky? Which is a story that I have had to realize within myself not that long ago, when someone offered me lucky socks. So it's important to remind yourself that there's a yes and. You feel like you are a walking catastrophe and that nothing good happens to you. And that's just simply not true. In knowing that it's simply not true, you feel like you don't know how to find a silver lining, and you're going to move forward and find one anyway. These ands can be really, really helpful. And so to recap one last time, I want you to remember that there is a myth that rock bottom leads to breakthrough. That it's these small, consistent habits that brings you to joy. That the power of and holding two truths at once can absolutely set you free. That in order to find the silver linings, you might have to find the gifts hidden in the really hard parts. And they might be really deeply hidden. That when you can't find a silver lining, you may have to create one that suits your plan for your life. You don't have to be grateful for the struggle, but you can find something meaningful in it. If today it's just too heavy, just focus on breathing through it. The silver lining will come. You just haven't seen it yet. All my love. I hope you have a beautiful day, and keep slugging it out there. You've got this. Thank you so much for listening. If you loved this last episode, then consider rating the podcast. Those few seconds that it takes makes a huge difference. Also, if you are interested in mentorship, transformational programs, or reading the book Unbroken: Rising Above, Thriving Within, then take a look at the show notes for all the resources and links. Always remember, you can overcome any obstacle. Let's do this together.